So, I had some weird thoughts. I figured I would put them down somewhere. So, SJW, Social Justice Warrior. Believe it or not, I probably only even heard this term about a year ago. It's not that I live under a rock, but I don't really frequent the popular crowds on the internet, places where the bandwagons are. And this is definitely a bandwagon, as is the name for it. I don't really like how people seem to think that we need to obsessively relabel everything. Nope, don't need it. But I am going to go into this. You have a lot of people who are actually trying to change something that they understand. They understand what's wrong, they're usually part of the group that, or know someone who is and have an integral understanding of what's wrong, how to fix it, and what they want to do about it, and what they think needs to be done about it. Then you have the people who are basically like the Hermiones of the world. I went there because while Hermione is incredibly intelligent, exactly when does she ever actually think about what the House Elves want? In fact, they actively don't want her kind of help. This is a lot of people are like that. Their idea of help conflicts with the needs of the people who actually need help. And most of the time, the kind of help that they need is simply an acknowledgement that the issue exists. I hate to tell you this, but that is like 99% of the battle. Because you're going to have so many people that are standing there saying, oh, this doesn't affect me, why should I care? Alright, so... Sorry, I had to pause there for a sec. Now whenever I say that they're the Hermiones of the world, I don't actually mean that they're incredibly intelligent. Some of these people can be, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they understand the issue, but some of them really aren't. Most of them really aren't. But they want to believe that they are. So I'm not going to talk about their overall intelligence. Because a lot of them are simply naive. Or want to help, but don't really understand the problem. Or that they're actually part of it, not part of the solution. See, problems can only really get fixed whenever we understand what they are. You have to have a structure. What's wrong? Where is the tangible evidence of what is wrong? How do we fix it? What is the cause and effect? What is causing the problem? What is at its core? Like, for instance, is it greed? I mean, is it hate? Is it both? Is it ignorance? And you have to understand not only what causes this on a social standpoint, but also what causes this on an interpersonal standpoint. There is a structure to understanding what you're even trying to change. First, you have to understand what's wrong. A lot of people, they're like, this needs to change! But do you even understand what's wrong? If you don't understand the problem, or, some things are pretty straightforward, like mass murders. But also, you can't sit there and say, yeah, I'm gonna support these conditions because somebody said that this would mean less mass murderers. That's not how this works. In fact, a lot of times doing that without understanding actually causes more problems and causes more of the exact thing that you are trying to stop. So you have to take a step back and look at the data. If you don't understand it, if you don't understand what's causing it, and you just jump right on the bandwagon, you're part of the problem. Sorry. But it's the truth. Anyway, that's kind of how it is. Well, it's not kind of. It is how it is. So, it's kind of like a bitch to realize. Because it's hard. You see, you want to help, but you don't want that help to become hurt. You don't want this to harm who you're trying to help. And a lot of times that's what happens. I hate to tell you this. You can't just walk in half-cocked with no idea what the problem is. And it's actually not hard. If you don't know how to fix it, you don't know what the problem is, basically. How do I fix this? Well, what's the problem? This thing is happening. What's causing this? What causes this to happen? A lot of people don't know what that is. And there are some issues that you can't really say this causes this to happen. Sometimes trying to preemptively strike is actually a problem in of itself. Don't get me started on that with family court and their risk factors, and how families have been torn apart just with those. Nothing actually needing to happen, just those. So, I'm looking at you, family court. So, that's a problem. That's an example of a problem where someone tried to understand it, failed miserably, and then took preemptive measures that actually create more of the same, and actually put more people in danger. So, yeah, you can make it worse. You also have to understand certain level of, how do I put this? You have to understand that there are certain lines that you cannot cross. No matter what your intentions are, no matter how much you think that you understand this issue. If you cross these lines, it doesn't matter. You will cause more issues, possibly worse, or just make the one that you're trying to fix worse. You have to understand the effect that you have. If you cannot say definitively what your effect is, or you can say it, and then other people are like, nah, dude, no. If you have to drown out the people that you're supposed to be helping to feel like you're helping, you're lying to yourself. Because the people who will tell you whether or not you're helping are the people that often end up abused because you're not helping them. This is true with any issue. Someone gets a bunch of power, they go on a power trip, and they're like, but I'm helping you, so it's okay. No, it's not. It's really not. That's actually how you send people to years of therapy, especially whenever children are involved. So, like, you want to fix an issue like women's rights. What causes the issues? Because you start getting into misogyny, down with the patriarchy. No. Because the fact that they were born with penises has nothing to do with it. A lot of women are shit to women. This is actually not gender specific. Many women have a negative attitude towards other women. They literally just hate each other. Okay? This is nothing to do with having a penis or a vagina as far as, you know, who can be shit to who. Women can be just as shitty as men can. So, this isn't the problem. The problem is not that people are born with penises. And the problem is not men with bad attitudes about women. That may be some part of the problem. But it's not that specifically. It is more an overall view. And an overall way that girls are taught from a very young age. And guys are taught from a very young age. Differentiating that we're both basically taught to ignore different parts of our human natures that we all have. There's actually not that much of a difference between guys and girls. As far as on a biological level, women are in, like, whenever the adrenaline hits, you are made to lift more than your muscle mass would normally be able to support, your skeleton literally forms around this idea. And because women are made to defend and to protect, this is literally what you are physically geared to do. This does not mean that you have to do this with your life. This does not mean that you can't forge your own role in life. This is biologically the difference. You are built to dig in and defend. Men are not built for this. They can learn it the same way that we can learn their shit. But you are physically, specifically geared for this. Like, your body can support more weight under adrenaline. It's nothing more, nothing less than survival. You can have babies and breastfeed. And whenever we were at some point in human history, this was really actually a lot more important than it is now. We didn't have formula. Go figure. A woman who could protect her den, protect her home and the children within it, and still be alive to feed them was very important. Women are actually made more fierce, less likely to be scared of blood, and yeah. But then you have some of these bullshit studies that like women have grips that are weaker than men. This is from Europe. Why? Really? Like, were any of those women Scottish? Inquiring minds want to know, because Scottish history is actually wrought with this. In fact, the reason why they couldn't just swoop in and say, Scotland is ours, and believe me, they tried, was because literally those same women that they viewed as delicate flowers basically took a kitchen knife and cut them open like sardine cans. In their big fancy armor, yeah, it really just made them easier to kill. There was actually a stereotype that went around at one point because Scottish people were basically called demons and shit. Because they would come in all decked out in this big, huge, heavy, expensive armor that took all this time to make and all this training to wear. And I hate to tell you this, but this is basically the story of what would have happened if the Native Americans didn't die of plague. People are not savage just because they're not your culture. Get that out of your head right now. Scottish people, sorry, but they didn't care. You threatened them. The Scottish people had been dealing with Vikings and Nords since before, like, anything. And if you know me at all, you know that I refuse to call the Nords and the Vikings Celtic. Yes, at one point the Vikings took over a bunch of shit. And the Nords are annoying as fuck. The Nords, however, were pirates, and they are literally what became Vikings. Now, in some respect, Viking eventually became more of an order of, like, mercenaries and shit, and like, its own thing, but initially, they were raiders. Nords were raiders, and so originally that's what the Vikings were. And they never really stopped being raiders. They just, like, sort of allowed for more stuff to happen, and not just being raiders. Like, farms actually happened eventually. They did not initially do this. They were warriors by trade. Well, we say warrior, but it's really pirate. Because they didn't have farms and shit. They stole from everybody else. You know, this was the thing. So, like, yeah. So, like, women would... God. Celtic women who were in, like, Ireland and Scotland. And there were some tribes, so it wasn't really as unilateral as that would suggest, because there were some that were more in the area of like England. It was less today's borders and more something a little bit different. So you had your Nordic tribes and your Celtic tribes, and the Celtic tribes, kind of varied from different areas. So the Nords didn't actually vary as much. they were kind of unilaterally assholes. So anyway, like, Scottish people had basically been dealing with this since before the Catholic Church was even thought. Whenever the Nords no longer, like, remembered this, people over in, like, Scotland had, like, they weren't hit as heavy by the Catholic Church, and they weren't really hit, like, some of the people still around, they weren't, like, as badly done in by the Romans or the Greeks either. So, yeah. The assholery just, they became very tough, and it was a very tough culture. And you could not dominate them because you were so busy wearing fancy armor, and they were just like, survival! And this is really sad because, like, I couldn't imagine if that would be the only thing that Scottish people were ever remembered for. Because the general gist was to value peace, but defend it, and defend your freedom. There were things that nobody should ever take from you, and everybody was always trying to take it from us for like thousands of years. So, yeah. Whenever you want to fix an issue, you need to understand it. You need to understand where it comes from. Whenever you look at an issue like the attitude between Brits and Scots, I'm sorry, but there's gonna be like some sort of attitude flung across there. As long as nobody's killing each other, I'm good with it. Because I know why it's there. And yeah. If you want to hate each other, great. Honestly, I don't actually like people who know that history and even vaguely support it. I'm like, I was actually rooting for Scotland whenever it came out that they were going to try and see if they could secede. And I was like, yes, do it! Become your own nation again! And it didn't happen, and then I was kind of sad, like, wow, you're totally okay with being subservient to this shit. What happened to the Scotland I heard about that used to uphold its traditions even in the face of Christian persecution of them? I mean, what happened to the people who were so stubborn that even today some things survive and there's still like bards and shit? Like, we're literally descended from like druids and shit that got away from the stuff that they were doing. Like, what happened to the people whose strength was so respected by their enemies that their enemies knew better than to come after their children or their wives, or how some of those women taught their sons to fight? You don't mess with the Scotswoman. What happened to that? It's not about fighting. It's about setting a boundary and keeping it. This is what you can't take from me. This is something I'm willing to die to uphold. If I have to die to keep it this way for my children, so be it. Because it will still be that way for them. They will still have their freedom, and you will not be able to take that from them. You will not be able to take their family or their culture. What happened to this? What happened to that? Oh, right. People like some of the original Campbells of Argyle happened. Oh, you don't know about them. Not very many people here do. not many people really, I don't even know what's taught in Scotland. I've literally never been there. But my family has passed down some stuff. And surprisingly, this little tidbit comes from my grandfather's side, not my grandmother's, where most of her stories come from. And have come from for a very long time. I guess her brothers decided not to learn them? Or I don't even know if they were offered. I wasn't there. So, yeah. I know she didn't teach my uncle the way that she taught me, at least. I don't think she did. And I learned from my mom. But I know that my aunt is like 7 shades of denial, and I've literally never been able to talk to her long enough to find out how much she knows or does not know. Literally, we would probably kill each other if you locked us in a room. And, well, I wouldn't kill her, but she would definitely eventually try to kill me, because I threaten every piece of denial she wants to uphold in her life. Every illusion built up carefully to disguise reality, my very existence threatens this, because she blindly took everything that my grandmother had to say. Also, if I knock down her perceptions of me, then she has to face the denial she clearly has about her own history. And I mean her personal history. Because there were some hints about that one time that she, started screaming at me whenever I was like 18 years old. Yeah, this was over 10 years ago. And, this is actually what even got me asking what happened to my mom. Because I literally thought I'd been the first one to have all that shit happen to me. I did not know. I was literally just reaching out to my aunt to see if I was alone. I got my answer. I also got my aunt hating on me. And screaming at me that my mother was a liar. And I was just like, I did not hear this from my mom. It never crossed my mind that anything had happened to my mom at the hands of my grandmother. So yeah, my grandmother passed down the stories, but she was also evil. And this is like not something that is a common theme as far as that goes, because you can literally pass down stories and be any religion, anything. You can be evil, you can be good, you can be somewhere in between. Because upholding your tradition does not have anything to do with that. Yeah. It really doesn't. Anyway, my grandfather told me about the original Campbells of Argyll. And he said that they were ousted because they, decided to side with England and betrayed their people. The original Campbells of Argyll were bloodline. They were not elected. These were bloodline leaders, much like royalty, but like smaller groups. It was a little more tribal, I guess, but like in one spot. I guess if you think of tribal the way that stereotypical Native Americans are, you've got it wrong. But if you think of it like established civilizations, which is actually what the Native Americans were like too, you would have it right. See what I'm doing there? We're not actually that different. And also, people wore shit in their hair. No. It had probably had some different meanings. Some of it did. I know that. But yeah, people wore weird shit in their hairs, like feathers. We all, I guess, did stuff like wear rocks and bones and furs. And guess what? People aren't that different from around the world. It's really not that crazy. So, like, there are these people going, oh my god, a redhead with feathers in her hair. Cultural appropriation. I'm sorry, what? What kind of person are you? Okay. Is anyone being hurt? Let's learn how to identify a problem. Is anyone being hurt? Is this causing any lasting effect at all? At all? No? So there's no harm being done. most importantly, there's no lasting harm being done. This is literally just a chick who wants to wear feathers in her hair. It's not your problem. That doesn't need to be fixed. Are people being hurt? Is there lasting harm? That needs fixed. Everything else is none of your fucking business. Okay? Now whenever you identify people are being hurt, there's injustice being done here. People, laws are being broken. Blah, 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 blah. People are being hurt. This is like your main thing. If literally there's no harm being done, long term or short term, it is none of your fucking business. So like some chick with feathers in her hair, I'm sorry, was she hurting anybody? Because this is not owned by any one culture. Literally, cultures from around the world wore goddamn feathers in their hair. Different styles of headdress. Some of them were actually pretty similar because guess what? There were no sewing machines and there was only so many different ways you could really put this together. There was some surprising amount of variation there, but generally speaking, if it was a practical way to add feathers to your hair, it was probably fairly common among cultures that did this. And actually, a lot of cultures did this. I mean, Nords used to use bones a lot. Like, a lot of tribes in Africa did and still do this. I mean, this isn't, I don't understand the need for political correctness. As far as, this serves no purpose except to do harm and create the idea that if that chick wears feathers in her hair, it's somehow your business. It's really not. Also, it also creates this general idea of distinction without difference. I'm sorry, but if you're calling it something different to feel better about it, you probably shouldn't be doing it. If it fits, boom, 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 the criteria for that thing you're refusing to call it, it's that thing that you're refusing to call it. Stop doing it. You mean, there's like a million ways that you need to look at things and understand them, just... If I know an issue, I speak up. If I don't know it well, but I know that this person is way out in left field, I will suggest that they do research. And I will know if they don't, because I will then go do research, because I can't stand it. Okay? You need to go into things like this informed. And, like, this is terrible, okay? I'm just like, what is this weird thing between social justice warriors and all these other people? I have literally been mistaken for one once. And I was just like, what the fuck? Because literally, it's to the point where there are people who are just labeling people who are saying, something is wrong here. Or you didn't do your research. Or you have no fucking clue what you're talking about. Where are your sources? As SJW. Or just two people disagreeing on the internet and then they're like, this is what happens when two SJWs get together. That's literally the only time that I've ever been mistaken for one. And I literally told them, I am not this. Don't call me that. Because I've been aware of it for long enough to know what it is. And to dislike it. I literally had to actively deal with someone who got all of her information on what things were from Tumblr. All of it. And not even like from a credible blog with sources or anything like that. She was literally listening to a bunch of 12-year-olds who know nothing. And who think otherkin are like relating to Sailor Moon. And like, what? No. So like, I never told her what I was. Because I'm otherkin. And I had to endure all the things that she had to say about that. Knowing that she knew absolutely nothing and was completely wrong about everything. But like, this is one of those people who's so opinionated. It doesn't matter. If you say, look at the proof, you can find it here, she will refuse to look. Generally speaking, this is actually pretty common of the human race, though. A lot of people will simply refuse to look, and they'll just assume and not want to look because, they view this as work, and that they're lazy. They're intellectually lazy bastards. I am not. I like to learn new things and research things and know things, and I hate not knowing them. So yeah. See, this is a thing, and it drives me nuts. But understanding an issue can be very messy. You need to know all these different details about it. But sometimes there are details you don't necessarily need to know. It just gives you more insight as to why the issue is there. Obviously, like if you understand why there's like some sort of, habitual like divide between Scottish people and British people, then, Brits. Then you understand that there's actually a long-standing cultural reason for this. Maybe people know in general, commonly, maybe they don't. Maybe it's just been learned through the generations that they just generally have a bad attitude about each other. Maybe it's just, cultural differences, because one held on as strong as they could. Now, that doesn't mean that they successfully did so, with some things, but one just basically was overwritten as a culture, but, kept the bloodthirstiness, and, still has a monarchy that, thinks that they rule the world, because at one point my soldiers pissed here. Yeah, it's kind of what she sounds like. Whenever, she went and did that, thing where she tried to claim, America as, a wayward colony, yeah, people really just laughed at her and, shook their head and, this lady's for real? I myself had to check that article for authenticity because it sounded too off the wall to be true. Could anyone possibly be this delusional about the world or how it works and delusions of grandeur? Is it possible to be that? Apparently it is. I actually had to check that whenever I'd run into something on that, because I was like, what is this? This can't be real. It was real. So you'll run into things like that in life. And this is a big reason why there are some issues that don't get the support and attention that they need, and why there are families who are victimized by certain issues. If you know me at all, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because I actually deal with that and have. Now I help other people with it, but nobody helped us. Nobody. We had someone say that they were going to, and I'm of the mind that that person literally was just a person on the internet yanking my chain because they found it amusing. The place that they sent me to didn't exist. I went through hell. Nobody made sure that the law was followed with us, that rights weren't violated, so naturally laws were broken and rights were violated. Because the fact that they are there is not enough to assure that they are followed, or that rights aren't violated. You have to have someone making sure that that doesn't happen, and that the people whose rights are violated know what their rights even are to be violated. And of course, the people violating those rights and who routinely benefit from violating those rights are not going to be the ones that tell you that. Or if if they do, they're only going to tell you about the ones that they want you to know about, that conveniently leave out the ones that are a bit more inconvenient for them. This is something very routine. They consider this routine, don't see a problem with it. Now I help other people by telling them what their rights are. And be like, hey, contact this. Mention this. If they tell me that this is this, I'm like, mention this. Because this is the right being violated here. This is where you can find the laws. Look in this book on this page. If this person like is in a rush, otherwise I'll just tell them, look in this book, look in the back of this book. This will tell you everything, because there's literally so much information in there. You should definitely do that. In the back of the family law book, see, there weren't like specific laws whenever I was going through that. There wasn't like a specific section or a specific book. There was just amendments in the back that specifically pertained. You look in there, and then you look, don't just take it at face value, look in the book of legal definitions. Because some things that maybe don't seem as clear in the actual laws themselves, they're definitely clear. If you understand what they mean by legal standards, what this is exactly referring to, how this is defined, it is completely explained. Yeah. There's some people who act like there's like this massive room for interpretation for some things, and there's really not. There's like no room for interpretation for most of it. And what there is, it's supposed to, in good faith, be taken a certain way, and often isn't. So, what you have to understand is that it's still people. So, shit still happens, even if it sounds like it's crazy as fuck that it does. Like, for instance, the Queen of England trying to say, "You're mine now, America! Pay me taxes!" No. Sorry, but if you make, like, anything over, like, maybe not much more than $10 an hour, you literally paying the same tax, same, like, percent, like, you would lose the money, any money that you would make, like, more than that. More than what you're already making in taxes. Just in taxes. It's ridiculous. Because these are the people that are still, like, in the range to be living paycheck to paycheck in reality, not, like, the millionaires that Trump deals with. He has, like, no concept of this. Our government is run by idiots. Oh, greedy idiots. Like, they have some intelligence there, but, like, they're not using it. So I'm going to just refer to them as idiots, because they're only selectively using it for their own gain, not actually what they're supposed to be doing, which is, you know, representing the people. Because that is basically the duty of every public officer, ever. Yeah. I goddamn fucking hate politics. It's come from representing the people who elect you to shoehorning groups of people nobody wants there, and nobody even wants to be in an office at all. Like, we're just like, we hate you, you fucking liar. Like, go away. And, like, we don't even trust you. Why are you here? And it's basically become a contest of which one of them can pretend not to be as scummy as the other one, convincingly enough. More convincing than the other one can. We don't actually trust either one of them in any given election to not be scummy. We expect them to be dishonest, horrible, and just basically piles of human refuse. That's not actually what it's supposed to be, and that's not what it was built to be. So, yeah. It's not how it originated either. in that politicians kept, I'm not saying that they were perfect, but initially, like, even our president basically had his own plantation and worked on it. He didn't just have a bunch of slaves that did everything for him. A lot of people with plantations did it themselves or hired people to help them. So, and that's another thing. If you're going to talk about history, do some goddamn research. There were white slaves in America. And then if you look up the indentured servitude, nicer way of saying it, and the rules, look up how those were actually enforced. Because there are rules that simply aren't enforced. And these were the colonies where, like, nothing was enforced. Really. That's, like, one of the biggest problems that caused anything there. It was literally too far away for England to do shit. So there was, like, no enforcement here. There was none. So, like, indentured servitude was a slave with prettier words. And also, there really were slaves that came in the same way as anyone from Africa did. I'm tired of this. Like, you can actually find shit about this, and also, like, there's this apparent thing where a bunch of people who aren't white need to be somehow labeled as white, and I'm like, pretty soon we're just going to get to the point where everybody who's not black is just going to be called white. I am pretty sure that that's not. No. It's not actually how the world works, and we need to stop that shit. I mean, literally I am mixed. But I am not mixed enough, I guess. And the fact that I'm completely open about this means that literally both the KKK and the Black Panthers, two hate groups, would literally hate me because I have Jewish blood. Yeah. I'm like, this is a bunch of senseless hate, and obviously it has nothing to do with the color of my skin. Because they're going to hate me no matter what. All you have to do is tell them there's Jewish in there somewhere, and they will hate me because I have a heritage. See, but also, like, I wasn't brought up Jewish, so, like, I have, like, I have a little idea of what Jewish heritage, like, Jewish culture even looks like, is anybody who has no Jewish heritage whatsoever. In fact, there are probably some people who have no, like, Jewish heritage at all who understand more than I do about it, because they've picked up the religion associated with it that came from it. I know some things because I've done research, but, like, it was about the religion, not a lot of the other stuff. Whenever I was a kid, it wasn't cultural appropriation, it was learning to respect other cultures through understanding and trying to experience things to help understand them. It wasn't appropriation, that this didn't exist this way, make it all. But then I also grew up in an age where, like, they phased out, like, cultural appreciation week in schools and shit. It's not appropriation. You cannot appreciate a culture you don't understand, which is part of the problem. If you don't understand the problem, if you don't understand what offends people, I don't know how you expect to coexist with anybody. Literally. Like, if you don't understand that calling someone no brains in sign language, calling someone an idiot same thing. In spoken language, completely two different things. And culturally, it is like the biggest no of all time, because this culturally carries like dozens of times more weight in sign language than it does in hearing, English. You don't understand why. If you don't understand why, like, you don't know why this person is horribly offended. You don't know why this is so bad to them if you don't understand the culture. You don't understand, the reasons. So, it's like a lot of things. SJW, social justice warrior. I have a problem with this. If you need to be called social justice warrior, you're not. You are an asshole. Trying not to be an asshole. And failing. Because you are most definitely an asshole. Now, if you legitimately understand something and have a problem with it, great. As long as you aren't hurting anybody, I give no shits what you do with your life. In fact, I applaud you if you're helping to fix something that is legitimately wrong. But nitpicking people's stuff and personal lives and things that they do to try and understand other cultures, or simply to embrace their own and that you simply don't have any knowledge about. Leave everybody else alone, and like, if it's not broken, it doesn't need fixed. And if nobody is being harmed, if no harm is being done, it's not broken. In fact, generally speaking, if no harm is being done and it offends you, it's probably something that's furthering the understanding between groups of people. And